Hey guys!
Hi everybody!
Welcome to the new season of Raffles Talk. This season we're exploring something called Uncomfortably Honest. The creative world loves to talk about success, perfect ideas, perfect images, perfect careers. But today we're not here to talk about perfection. We're here to talk about mistakes, strange images, and the stories hidden inside them.
Today's guest is someone who has spent his entire career challenging the idea of what creativity should look like. Erik Kessels, Dutch artist, designer, creative director, known for turning everyday images, mistakes and visual overload into powerful artistic statements. Erik, pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
The world today is obsessed with perfection. Why do you think people are so afraid of being bad?
I mean, there's something different between perfection and being bad. Being bad is bad, but being imperfect is in creativity is something actually very interesting, because in creativity, especially also the field where you are working in, and in schools and universities, and especially on the creative field, things are really pushed a little bit towards perfection. You know, with the computer programs you use, with AI, with applications, all the professional instruments are there to push people to push creatives to make perfect things, a perfect portfolio, a perfect finished image. All these things are perfect, while perfection is not really a good starting point for a new idea. For a new idea, it's more that you have to look at things that are imperfect, that are broken, that are not right, that are dysfunctioning or strange, and these are inspirations for for a new idea. In the end, of course, when you finish something, then you should do it in a perfect way. But I am talking about more that there's a front yard of the house and there's a backyard of the house, and the front yard of your house is where all the finished works are. There's your portfolio, your website, your Instagram account, but in the backyard there's really the dysfunctional things, the things that are unfinished projects, your deep fascinations, your shortcomings, your embarrassments. They are in the backyard, and there in the backyard you are open to make mistakes, because metaphorically there is a fence around it and nobody sees you, so you can make a lot of mistakes.
So do you think creativity industry sometimes pretend to be deeper and more meaningful than it actually is?
Yeah, of course, because let's be honest, I mean, the creative industry in the sense of commercial creativity, like advertising agencies, design agencies, I mean, often there is quite a lot of opportunism. It's like a very opportunistic world, because a lot of these companies, they do it mostly for the money. And when a client would ask them to make certain changes or certain compromises, for the money they would do that. But I think it's very important that the creative industry should have its own standards, and should be, they should not compromise so much. But it is also down to the people, the emerging creatives that are now in schools and teaching, that they, you have to raise your own personality. You have to make sure that you are that you have a strong backyard again. That is something important. And then you can have your own personality in this industry. That is very important.
And you think school is standardized a little?
No, I mean, a school is as good as the students that are in it. If a school is a boiling point where things are happening and where students are rebelling against what is possible and what is not possible, then it's a breeding ground. When the breeding ground becomes very good, the school is very good.
So many designers say they want to change the world, but in reality they are designing campaigns to sell more products. Do you think the creative industry sometimes exaggerates its impact?
That's a good point. It's totally true, I think. I don't know which designer said that they would change the world. That's of course bullshit. I mean, you can change a perception. Maybe that's the most to do. That you change a perception how you look at things. What you say, I mean, they work for clients and sell more and they design things to sell more products. Okay, but that is also what it is. How you do that and how you work with the client, how, like for instance, in my case, in the advertising I made and the things I designed, is always a lot of irony and self-spot. And I think that's very important, to be a bit sarcastic, a bit ironic, and don't take yourself too serious. I mean, I think the fact that a lot of people in this industry take themselves very serious, that is even a bigger problem, because they think like that they are doing something very important. And I think also that the industry often doesn't have a lot of values, like they would do everything for money. And there was 2 times in 20 years time or 25 years time that there was a client that we didn't want to work for anymore because it was going into a wrong direction. And that client was 60% of our income, even when we were working with 20, 25 people already at that time. And we decided to tell the client that we did not want to work for them anymore. It's also good to have your principles and to have your certain ethics in what you want to make yourself. If you are very strong in what you believe in, that's also good.
You have worked both as an artist and in advertising. In campaign like Hans Brinker Budget Hotel, you promoted the hotel by openly talking about how terrible it was.
Yeah, I think
using the irony was.
Yeah, I think one of the important things also, I mean, advertising takes itself so seriously. You communicate to students and backpackers. You cannot fake them, or you cannot be. You have to be honest and very ironic. So we told in the advertising for 25 years that people should not go to that hotel because it's a terrible hotel. But we did it in such a funny way that people started to love the hotel for being so honest. We started to work for that hotel, and then we thought like, what can we do? Maybe honesty is their only luxury. Sometimes it's even good to do like anti-advertising or to turn things upside down. Yeah, we did like a campaign saying that there was a door in every room now, or that there was even more dog shit in the main entrance, or now that there was even more rooms without a window, just like very negatively and very anti. And the hotel was tripled in overnights.
If failure is so important to creativity, what is a mistake you are still hoping to make?
I mean, I think that the biggest mistake still needs to be made, like I don't know what that is. I'm talking about making mistakes in a professional way. By coming up with an idea, there's many ways you think about how to solve it. Yeah, sometimes you have to go through a thick forest of very stereotypical ideas. And then you go through a bush and you find a free space, and then there is things that you can actually work with. For me, it's like a method of working to make mistakes. Trying to look at it from different ways and to break it. Another thing which is very important is that you need to be very fit also in your mind. I mean, for making mistakes. You need to feel very good to make a big mistake. It's something very decadent. If you think about how many minutes a day that you purely think about ideas, it's very little.
You spent years collecting other people's photos and turning them into art. Do you think your work is actually about images or about human behavior?
Of course, it's about human behavior. I work with so-called vernacular photographs, images that are very sometimes overlooked. I find a lot of photographs on flea markets, online, people that donate them to me. So the object itself, the printed photograph or a family album, I have not so much value to that, to the physical object. but have very much value to the story that you can find in it. When a husband photographs his wife over time, you see that often they depart from each other, so that there's more distance. Of course, I am much more interested in the story and the behavior and anthropological aspect of images. We live with an enormous amount of images every day. We consume images very rapidly, but we don't look at them anymore. So when you take one image from the huge amount and you start to live with it and you start to look at it and live with one image for many days, there will be an enormous sensation from that image. A lot of photographs are already taken, but not all the stories behind the photograph are told yet.
Yeah.
In your project, 24 hours in photos, you printed hundreds of thousands of images. Did that project make you more fascinated by photography or more worried about it?
Both, I think, in this case, because I'm fascinated with the amount of images that we live with, like I said before. Yeah, people see more images now before lunch than somebody in the 18th century saw in their lifetime. So we have become a species of editors. We need to edit images, we need to edit our emails or the sound we hear. Nowadays, for instance, it takes us longer to delete a photograph than to keep a photograph. That's very interesting. We take so many images and the life cycle of an image has also completely changed. Because now an image can sometimes exist for a few seconds and then the function is over already. Yeah, worried is also that with the enormous amount of it and also with the enormous flood that comes over us now with AI and non-human created imagery. Yeah, of course, that is also, this is like a new wonder word, like AI, and everybody's very enthusiastic about it, which can be fine because it's a really useful tool, but it can be also ethically, I think people should be also very worried. You know, we should be careful that not everything becomes like a statistical hallucination. I think most important is that the people who use this also use it for their benefit as a tool, but never as a solution to start with.
So you think AI is a little bit killing the creativity?
When you use it in the right way, it is not killing creativity. It is a tool that you use which brings a lot of things together. I mean, as a tool itself to generate things and to make things much quicker and much more quicker presentable, that is something very positive.
Many of your projects start with anonymous family photographs. When you look at thousands of images, what makes you stop and think there is something interesting hidden here?
Certain mistakes, and they are very interesting. You know, like for instance, people that have a finger in front of the lens, you know, that, and so in the picture there's a big finger. To me, it's like a attack of a giant finger in the photograph, and or. For instance, I made one book where a family was fighting against one of the biggest mysteries in photography, and that's how to shoot my black dog. So there was a family that tried to shoot a black dog, photograph it, and it completely failed constantly because they did it with Polaroid film, and the film was reacting very badly to something very light and something very dark. So it completely made the black dog into a phantom. Only when they, at the very end, when they probably saw that it was so bad, they started to overexpose the photographs. So suddenly there was one photograph where you finally could see the eyes of the dog, but then the rest of the picture is completely bleached out.
In your book, Man, you noticed a recurring pattern in family photographs. The man almost always stands exactly in the center of the image. What made you notice this pattern in the first place? And what do you think it reveals about the way people present themselves in photographs?
Yeah, I mean, this book, Man, that I did recently is a publication, of course, which is the work itself, is the book itself, because as a designer, of course, sometimes it's very annoying that you have a small book and when you open it, it doesn't really open. Yeah. So with that in mind, somewhere in my mind, and looking at other people's photographs, I was finding this pattern that when there's, for instance, two women and one man on the photograph, the man always wants to stand in the middle. So I started to look at all the family albums that I have, not my family, by the way, but I have about 15,000 family albums of other people, and I use that as a reservoir. So when I have a small starting idea, I start to look at these photographs and at these albums, and I find certain patterns in them. Sometimes when there's two women, the man wants to stand in the middle. So I collected these photographs and then I put them together by putting the man exactly in the middle of the book. So when you open the book, the man has disappeared. Also very
ironic.
Yeah, ironic and a bit taking the piss out of the man.
They want to be in the middle.
Yeah.
Your installation, Destroy My Face, invited people to skate over images of cosmetic surgery faces.
Yeah.
When an artwork makes people uncomfortable or even angry, do you see that as a risk or as a proof that the work is doing something meaningful?
I think in this case maybe both. This is a work that I did that caused a lot of anger, especially online with a certain group of people. But for me, making a work of art, it should be always possible to have a dialogue about certain things. I think that when no one hates your work, there's also not a lot of people who love your work. If you go to a museum or you see a work of art, you need to be either very surprised, very excited, you have to think that something is very beautiful, very ironic, or very horrible. That can be also... But the very is very important in this, because it needs to be something that is exaggerated and not something that is comforting. It should be make you uncomfortable in a positive way, in a negative way, whatever you like. Yeah. So this is important, and it's also important that artists have the freedom and feel the freedom to do this.
Okay, now we are gonna have the last questions, the most dangerous one.
Oh, I start with the last one. I haven't read the other. If you had to give one brutal, honest piece of advice to creative students today, what is something they probably don't want to hear? Yeah, one of the most important things is also to say no to things. That is. For me, also something very complicated sometimes, because when you get offered a job to do something, you're very happy with that, and you are honored that somebody asks you. But in a way, to say no to things is very important. When you get a job offered and you think like, okay, nice, but it's not really my cup of tea, and it's not something I can really push myself in and make something better than I already did before. Maybe you should stop it and say no. And saying no is one of the most important things, because it's also the most complicated thing for a creative, because creatives want to make things. Of course you need to say sometimes yes also, but the no's say more about you than the yes. Because you say no with a very strong opinion, and that is important. And of course I can imagine with students, when they hear this, they think like when next week they get something offered,
why would they say no?
Why would they say no, especially when there's money involved and they could use the money? But on the other hand, from the beginning also, at least when I started the company and we had these values, I would say we would say no to things with a group of people. And this has brought us a lot of good things. And it's not about the money. If you start to work for the values and for yourself, the money will always follow. So if you have a strong opinion by saying no to this, no to that, yes to that, then people will recognize you at one point and they think like, wow, this is like that I want to work with, because he or she is specifically going for that, and all the other things are not important. One of your projects is based on the last photograph ever taken of your sister. Can a single image really carry the weight of memory? This is something, it has two meanings, of course. I made a work about my sister with using her last image, and I made that into a work of art by hanging it in cities, and and showing it on posters, and nobody knew what this image was, but it was the last image of my sister. So it has two meanings. For me, it's like a tribute to my sister who died when I was 11. She was 9. But so it's a tribute, and I can see these images everywhere, and it does something to me. For the people who see it, it is a test of of the meaning, what one image can mean and what one image can say. You take one single images out of all the images that we see and live with. Actually, you can look at it and investigate it and research it and or fantasize about it, and there is a huge world behind it. I think sometimes to pause at something nowadays, to pause at something you see on the street, to pause at something that you read, at something that you photograph that you see, and by pausing and by stopping and looking at it is actually something very good. Because we live in a fast world where everything is passing and things need to be quick decisions, images, messages are coming rapidly. So if you look at it slowly, it's actually quite good, I think.
You also created a video about your sister.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's also good when they make personal works, and there you can really use a personal topic. You are creative, so you can also touch certain vulnerable topics in yourself, with your family, with what happened to you. And this is important. But as a creative, you can really do something with this, and use this, and play with it, and tell a story about your own personal things.
Thank you, Erik. It was
Thank you.
pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we are good.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I leave the beginning in. That's very nice. That she says like.
When I made a mistake while talking,
That she
the
says like
opening part.
we have to do this again. But it's
Yeah.
perfect in a